It's Natalie Gentile, and I'm back for another edition of Facts Over Fear. Joining me today is Dr. Natalie Gentile, who is also rocking her natural curl. Let's just start there. Twinsies. She is an incredible physician. I really feel that she is a healthcare disruptor. Why I say that, we'll learn more about, with direct primary care being her thing. She actually co-founded the Direct Care Physicians of Pittsburgh here in Pennsylvania and is the owner and founder of Rebel Wellness. How are you, Dr. G?
I'm doing great, Natalie. Thanks for having me back.
You're not going to be great in about 3,
and
2,
that's
1.
As usual. That's to be expected.
Because you guys do. That's what we do. We bring out the sun. No, there's always so much to talk about in the world of wellness and healthcare. And so we're going to be diving into 3 topics today. One, we're going to be really talking about what is the actual cost of healthcare, or should I say the lack of healthcare in our society. We're going to be talking about an RFK Jr. vaccine ruling that has him a little ruffled, not going to lie, which has me a little happy. And we're going to be discussing what's going on lately with supplements. There's a new class action lawsuit at Nutrafol, and Kourtney Kardashian has teamed up with Paige DeSorbo to try to help you sleep better, but for a price, of course. So we're going to dig right in, but let's kick things off. Because Americans aren't just cutting back on the necessities, they're actually skipping meals at this point. This has been widely reported all over the internet the last few days. New data is showing 1 in 3 people currently are sacrificing basic needs just to pay medical bills. And I'm not talking about the uninsured. I'm talking about people with insurance. So the question is, when staying healthy means going hungry, what kind of system really is this? Dr. G, what were your first sort of visceral thoughts around this topic?
I see it. So, I mean, I see this actually in several of my patients, even that I could think of off the top of my head, that are, struggling with housing insecurity right now. They are skipping out on, certain procedures, specialist visits, just due to cost. And these are people with insurance.
Yeah.
So that's scary to me. We had a taste test of this in a big way during the peak of the pandemic, right? When we had people not seeking healthcare during that time due to fear of being, sick, right? And also clinics being shut down, hospitals having limited access due to things that were only absolute necessities. And now we're seeing this again. And what did we see were the catastrophic downstream effects of that previously? Missed cancers, catching issues way too late, poorly controlled chronic disease management. Here we are again, now for a different reason, which is the complete lack of affordability with regard to healthcare.
And what scares me about this, to your point, I was looking at some statistics, and it's saying more than half of people, 55%, purchasing healthcare this year through the Affordable Care Act, say they've had to reduce other household spending or planning to cut back. And I find this really offensive when we look at the juxtaposition of what this government currently is willing to spend money on. Right now, the Pentagon, they're asking for another $200 billion with a B dollars to help continue efforts over in Iran. And I just want to give you a few stats, Dr. G, on what some of that money could have been redirected from. We could reverse Trump's cuts to Medicaid until mid-2030. This is all from Defend America Action, which is a research, a bipartisan, nonpartisan research effort. And they do some great work here on fact checking. We could also extend the ACA, the Obamacare tax credits for more than 22 million Americans over the next 7 years. And we could fund nursing home care for 1.7 million seniors for a year instead of extending $200 billion more for this war. When you hear that, because we talk a lot about how medicine isn't just about medicine. It's about all the other factors that create a healthy foundation for a healthy life. How does that feel, especially as a primary care physician, when you're usually the first line of defense?
So I want to put this into perspective because, you might first hear that and say, well, it's good that people are learning to budget. They're cutting down their spending on other things for what they need, which is health insurance. We're not talking about not getting a couple of lattes so that you can afford a gym membership. We're not talking those numbers. I'm seeing patients that their monthly premiums are doubling, tripling at best.
Yeah.
So when you are on a fixed income every month, That is catastrophic. And that is not just cutting back here and there. That is literally, well, I could get groceries or I could access this life saving inhaler that I need because I have asthma. I could get groceries. Or I could go to that specialist because of my chronic kidney disease that's now worsening. That's the kind of trade offs we're talking about. And, there are all these posts that go out there about like, well, we could spend all this money on war, or we could spend this money on that whole list you gave, which is not even remotely exhaustive, as you know. That whole list needs attention. Those are what are called social determinants of health. And social determinants of health are the absolute bedrock of family medicine. And when we address social determinants of health, we are addressing health and we are addressing public health as a whole. That is being systematically dismantled. And we are not able to address social determinants of health right now because most patients aren't meeting the marks even remotely.
Yeah.
And we have nothing to offer.
No, and I'm really glad you brought that word into focus. I want to give you one more stat because of that. We could buy, instead of the 200 billion going to war, we could buy 43.5 billion school lunches for the next decade fully funded because, as you know, once again, this is all foundational. This is what's going to prevent or support our health and healthcare needs in the future, is those stabilizing factors. I also wanted to bring up when you brought up the inhaler thing, you struck my memory. I just read a story. A young man died. I think he was in his early 20s because he didn't have access to an inhaler. It was several $100s that he could not afford out of pocket. He decided to pay rent instead that month, and he is now dead. And so when we're talking about this stuff, this isn't abstract. I mean, people are being harmed and they are dying. And so when we look at the big picture, and you know me, I've been an active proponent of universal healthcare since I was about 17 years old. I've been standing in solidarity. And so when I learned about direct primary care, and I'm also a patient of yours, I'm very lucky to be a patient of yours. I quickly realized those two things do not have to be in opposition at all, but they can all work together to help find solutions to our systemic healthcare problems. Can you talk about the DC or the direct primary care model and how it can fit into the future of what could be a more compassionate healthcare system?
Yeah. So direct primary care is a membership-based model of care. So patients pay monthly membership and have full access to their physician. And right there, I think people automatically say, oh, I'm paying outside of the insurance-based system. That must be only for rich people. What's interesting is I have many patients who are completely uninsured or underinsured. And that number is going up, especially now in the setting of 2026 with these premium shifts, which, by the way, aren't going to get better. The reality of the One Big Beautiful Bill is that the majority of these policy changes are actually due for 2027. So this is not something we have kind of gotten through. It's going to persist. So in a direct primary care model, these patients who are underinsured, uninsured, are patients who have really high deductible health plans, for example, have full access to very comprehensive primary care. Now, why is primary care so incredibly important? We're called the front lines of medicine, but when primary care is done right and you have access to care, you have time, hour-long visits with your doc, you can text your doctor, we can get a lot done. Yeah. And what's the problem with the traditional insurance-based model that we have right now for primary care is you have 7-minute visits, for example, 15-minute visits, for example. I will tell you, as a family doctor, most of my patients ain't coming in with just one complaint. They're coming in with a list of things we need to talk about. We are comprehensive human beings with a lot going on. And when you have such a minimal amount of time and you see a person once a year, you will not be addressing it. You will be kicking issues down the line. And that's what we are seeing as a result of primary care. High utilization of emergency rooms then, high utilization inappropriately of specialists because you're getting referred out to specialists because it can't be handled in primary care. So you see these downstream effects. Let me also talk about it from the physician perspective, because we have a dwindling workforce. Just this year, today is match day for residency programs. This is an exciting time where you as a med student match into your residency and go on in your career. The number of unfilled primary care spots is astronomically high this year. And when we have docs who aren't going to go into primary care, plus a dwindling workforce on the tail end, those of us who have made it through, but you know what, we're realizing it's not all it's cracked up to be. what is going to happen? We will have worse and worse access to care. So, as a DPC doc, I love my job. I have sustainability of my career. I have high job satisfaction. I'm going to stick in with it longer. I'm not going to be part of that dwindling workforce,
Mhm.
right? So, we've got to attack this from multiple angles. And I think that direct primary care helps as part of that solution.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's been really interesting experiencing it from a patient perspective as well, and also understanding how it fits into that larger puzzle that you just talked about. Um, I want to segue into the next topic here because we talk a lot about healthcare on this show, and we talk a lot about RFK and how those things really aren't, they don't work together. So it turns out, I don't know if you know this, you can't just vibe check science.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there. And it's good that we still have judges in places where they understand that as well. A federal judge just blocked this week RFK Jr.'s attempt to rewrite vaccine policy because, guys, evidence still does matter, which is great. A federal judge on Monday dealt a major blow to the Trump administration's effort to overhaul the nation's vaccine policies, including the controversial decision to slash the number of federally recommended vaccinations for children. Today's ruling is a historic and welcome outcome for children, communities, and pediatricians everywhere, said Dr. Andrew Racine. He is the Pediatric Academy's president. This is wild to me that we're in a place where an environmental lawyer is telling basically the nation how they should or should not vaccinate their children, is telling doctors and researchers and scientists who have boatloads of experience and understanding about vaccines in a way that shows that he knows little to nothing. Can you talk a little bit about how this felt for you as a primary care physician when you're dealing with, like you said, so many people from so many stages and phases of life? And does this add further, though, to the confusion around what the hell are we supposed to believe with when it comes to vaccines?
Yeah. So on its face, I think this is a win. And this is a really exciting thing that we should like take pause and be excited, react.
Sure.
This is great. We got it.
Yeah.
Because, enough anger and outrage from the American Academy of Pediatrics, all of us, the American Academy of Family Physicians, those of us behind these efforts that are taking care of pediatric patients,
Mhm.
those of us on social media and medicine trying to flood the feeds, right, with just talking about these issues. It's working. However, this is at what cost? Because now we've had such whiplash for so many months on months on months that we are still, though, fighting against trying to explain now why this new take is happening, right? Like, it doesn't help us in the sense of we still have to have these conversations with patients. And now we are trying to explain away why there are these constant changes. So that's frustrating. But I think on the whole, it's a bigger win. And I hope that it sticks. Now, I'm wondering what they're going to do with the ACIP, right? The group, the council that's put together of people who are supposed to make these decisions, which made these decisions to cut back the vaccines that are recommended. What's going to happen to them? I had read in one article, they're just thinking to dismantle a whole thing and rebuild a new one because it's easier than appealing this whole issue. Like, who knows what's going to happen to it? So I'm cautiously optimistic.
If you're just joining us, I'm Natalie Bensvanga. I'm chatting with Dr. Natalie Gentile. She is the co-founder of Direct Care Physicians of Pittsburgh and the founder of Rebel Wellness. She is a healthcare disruptor all the way around, and a direct care physician. Dr. G, now that I've rattled off all of your incredible stats all over again, it just brings back into focus this idea that we're not listening to the people with the expertise. And we're going to move into another conversation around this with the wellness grifters here in a moment. But I know you've spoken to this a lot, but I want to reiterate, I want to hit it home. How do we rebuild trust with our physicians, with the people in medicine? Because you do have so much misinformation around so many healthcare issues. When you go to the government website, when you go to the White House's website, now they've dedicated all kinds of pages around falsehoods as it pertains to healthcare. How do we know who to trust?
hmm Well, we're seeing a huge push, I think, in the community of those of us on social media and in medicine, where we are trying to, again, flood the feed with these conversations and really calling out truth around science and evidence. And what I've noticed is it can't be controversial. You're dumb because you said this, right? Like, we can't be
Right.
talking to each other like that. And people
Right.
who are saying things that are actually really harmful, we can't approach it like that. But I've seen it really be beneficial when we call out some of these individuals and we say, hey, I feel like this wasn't a full representation. It'd be nice if you had an actual physician who practices fill in the blank talking on your show, talking
Mhm.
on this clip that you put out there, right? About this like eye-catching viral video. Like,
Sure.
I'm seeing that and thinking that that's a really important way that we can start to address this is just calling these out, because most people are consuming social media as their way of getting news and information. And so we have to understand that and meet people where they are. It also happens, of course, in the clinic. And then it also happens from an advocacy perspective. So calling our senators, right?
Mhm.
Being there from an advocacy perspective in our medical societies locally. Like, this is the time for us as physicians to act, band together, work together for united messages, because I think that will show we're not siloed, we're not alone. There is a lot of truth and power behind evidence-based medicine.
Absolutely. And this is not a partisan issue. That's the thing.
No.
I think what's frustrating to me about a lot of the topics that we touch on. You're a physician, you take care of everyone and anyone who is seeking care. You're not asking people who they registered with or who they've supported. You're here to support people's health because you understand it helps us all when we're a
Yes.
healthy, functioning society. And I think that's important to note too, because when we're calling out policy, that's what we're calling out is the
Yes.
policy that could come from any administration at any time. It's just unfortunate that it seems to be exploding during this era that we are in. And talking about trust, there's a lot that you can't trust online, unfortunately. And I wanted to call out two things in particular. And I feel like maybe one of them is going to get me a little blowback because I know people really like this person that we're going to touch on for a moment. But listen, in the interest of being real, we got to keep it real. But
Yeah.
first, let's talk about the wellness industry selling solutions. It's selling belief, right? It's not always selling science. And I think Nutrafol is a perfect example of that. We've seen those articles and ads all over. They're facing a class action lawsuit now, alleging its clinically proven claims don't hold up. And this is really exposing how supplements are marketed. The 32-page case says defendant Nutraceutical Wellness, which does business as Nutrafol, has deceived millions of individuals into believing its supposedly physician-formulated supplements are made with medical-grade ingredients proven to treat underlying health issues and conditions known to affect hair growth. But unbeknownst to consumers, there is no reliable evidence that Nutrafol women can treat hair loss, the complaint alleges. And this
Mm.
just came out. It was last updated just less than a month ago. It was filed a few years back. But I think what's concerning about this, Dr. G, is this idea that we hear physician approved formula, we hear scientifically backed, and that's kind of the beginning and the end of it.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at things online like this, how do you know what counts? And what's been your experience with some of these supplements?
Well, I think let's talk specifically about Nutrafol here. I use, full disclosure, I use Nutrafol. I
Mhm.
recommend Nutrafol. My dermatology colleagues recommend Nutrafol. I have no financial tie to them.
Mhm.
But I found it really interesting in my journey of understanding it after hearing about so many patients using it. Because when you hear about hair loss, let's talk about the specific concern.
Yeah.
Hair loss is incredibly distressing. And let's talk about honing in on women. It is extremely distressing to women when there is hair loss that they have no other reason for.
Mhm.
Let's also talk about the pathophysiology behind hair loss, which is months to years
Mm.
of a timeline before you're going to see any improvement or change. So now we've got time as an issue. We don't have a
Yeah.
quick fix option. So something like Nutrafol is extremely brilliant because whether it works or not,
Mhm.
after 6 months, whatever was causing your hair loss 6 months ago
Mm.
may have resolved by then. So is it the Nutrafol that worked, or was it
That's such a good
time?
point.
Was it
Yeah.
the stressor, the illness that you recovered from, et cetera? So I think that's brilliant from a business perspective, to be honest.
Mhm.
Now, I think the other thing to look at is as a user of Nutrafol, got their I've only been using it for 3 months. I got a thing that came up and it was like, "Are you ready to renew?" Guess what? You have 8 days to grab one free add-on. But I was like, "Oh, what's this?" Wouldn't it be nice if it was a free add-on of what I'm already using? Nay.
Right.
It is a free add-on that you can pick from 4 different things, 4 different supplements they have clinically proven to help with this hair regrowth. One is a probiotic. Not necessary. I am not on chronic antibiotics. I have no inflammatory bowel disorder. I've no reason. I eat lots of plants. Okay. One is a detox. Okay, what does that mean?
That's a good word.
Interestingly, one of the ingredients in the detox is milk thistle, which we know has impacts on liver health. So in a negative way, which liver is here for detoxing. We want to support it. So that I felt like it was a no. And then there were 2 other ones. Again, no reason for anybody to be on them. But you could add on this free thing. Now, how brilliant is this marketing wise? I'm seeing this, I want to get something free. And it seems like it has a catchy name and it might help. They say it's clinically proven. And that's the supplement industry. They are brilliant from a marketing perspective. I just saw a post this morning where it seemed great. This woman was like, "I don't take creatine anymore. It is it's great for some people, great not for others. And this is a personalized journey and you deserve a personalized, tailored approach. DM me for my protocol for your approach." Is a protocol a personalized approach that you're getting from a free DM?
No.
Probably not. So you have to understand, it's the same stuff, different day. Same stuff, different account. There is a playbook and it's very much followed and it works.
Yeah. Because it's preying off of people's, like you said, insecurities. It's preying off of our lack of access to healthcare and this sense of personalization. And once again, I was using Nutrafol as an example. This is not like pro or against them. It's just, once again, we're seeing things that don't always add up. And then, like you said, what are these add-ons and why am I being given them?
Yeah.
And is this really becoming a replacement for our healthcare system? That's really what we're talking about here. And now, just to end on a final thought around this, Kourtney Kardashian, we all know the Kardashians. They've been selling pills, supplements. We did one on lollipops. Hello. All kinds of things for many years. And now Paige DeSorbo is getting in the mix. If you don't know who Paige DeSorbo is, she was a reality TV star on Summer House. She was also featured on Southern Charm. She was in sort of a power couple duo with Craig Conover. They are no longer together. She really blew up, though. She created a podcast with a colleague of hers called the Giggly Squad. I mean, they've sold out Madison Square Garden. She's now got her own sleepwear line called Daphne. Her whole brand, Natalie, she was known as one of the bed bugs on Summer House. And all they would ever do on Summer House, the girlies would just get into bed, gossip, be on their phones. It was kind of hilarious. People really like Paige. She has a very strong brand. She's been very smart about building a brand. And that's why I was really disappointed. And also just like, what are we doing here? Because Paige DeSorbo was featured in an ad featuring her brand, Daphne, which is her sleepwear line, with Kourtney Kardashian, who is selling, gummies to help you sleep, etc. And because of that, they just did this whole campaign. It's called Let Me, which is Kourtney's brand, X Daphne, like with Daphne, your bedtime dream team. And they've done this whole sort of like thing on social media. And the gummies contain melatonin, magnesium, L-theanine, plus a calming blend of chamomile, lavender, and elderberry meant to help you wind down at night. And so I wanted to get your thoughts because I've read things about melatonin that you can't really play with it for too long and you should really talk to your doctor about any of these things. But once again, it's this grifting coming together, which on its surface, it's like, well, Paige sells sleepwear. Yeah. This is not a doctor. And Kourtney, God knows, is not a physician. So Can you share a little bit about the science behind a sleepy time gummy like this?
Yeah, I can see the appeal. I can for sure understand why people would find that far more familiar than their doctor they can't even get into, or they don't even know who their doctor actually is. So That's the appeal there, is familiarity. The reality is there's a lot around melatonin coming out, pros and cons, right? It's not meant to be something that people take every single day unless very much clinically indicated for very specific conditions. And the other question is like, how much melatonin is in this? Because there are people who are taking massive amounts. My elderly patients tipping off their vertigo. Like, who's taking this? Who's taking it? Is it okay for you to take melatonin? How have you been impacted by it in the past? I think people think these holistic, natural things because because you can just get them over the counter, because they seem familiar and they sound soothing, are okay. I guarantee you have no idea what's actually in that gummy, first of all.
Thank you.
And the chances of it being fully regulated in a way that's safe are questionable. And also, have you cross-referenced it with all the other meds that you might take or supplements that you might take? And is this something that's going to have a detrimental long-term impact? If you haven't answered those questions, then you're wasting your money and potentially hurting yourself. And if nothing else, your pee is going to be very expensive because it's just going through you. You don't need it. Ugh.
Well, and I think what else bothers me about this is the hypocrisy, because a lot of this wellness grifting and the anti-vaccine, anti-science, anti-doctor sort of overlaps. And so what frustrates me here is there's such a rigorous level of research and care that goes into a vaccine making it to the doctor's office, to the pharmacy. That is in no way applied to anything that you can get from one of these wellness influencers. Anyone can sell you a supplement. Anyone can sell you a powder, a drink, a vitamin. Vitamins aren't regulated. You know, I even get nervous when I just go to get a normal vitamin, because I'm just like, well, I try to do some research on which brand I think is better, but none of this is, going through the process. Yeah. And also, I also do a lot of work with different brands. And one of the brands I work for, he works in biopharmaceuticals and the biomedical field and orthobiologics, and he helps people get through the FDA process. It takes years, years. And it is so hard and it is so wild to read, even from a layperson's perspective, the levels of checks and balances, the things that can go wrong, all the things that can bounce you back to start. So I find it frustrating because, of course, there is not this level of scientific literacy, and for good reason, because we never really had this need to question the process until very recently. And now that we're doing that, I wish we would take that same level of care and question the wellness industry as much as we do these other spaces.
And I think something to really cap on here is we've talked a lot about rugged individualism in this kind of general population of anti-vax, of this wellness grifter world, right? Like, I don't need doctors. Your doctor's lying to you, right? Like, you don't need medical health care. You don't need these people. We don't need to take care of each other or the common good. Then why do you need the supplements that you are talking about? So I think this picking and choosing should be very much questioned amongst this group of people. And you know what it all comes back to is money. And you can't make money, wellness grifter, off of my medical degree. So I'm useless to you. But guess what? I'm sure you can find a way to make money off of somebody who's desperate for help and who is very much hurt by the very same constructs that you support in this world. So I think that's something that we should be stepping back and talking about sometimes.
I just got chills. So that was amazing. I love a little soapbox moment, especially one as powerful as that and as real as that. Dr. Gentile, I always appreciate you so much coming on and sharing your incredible insights and your evidence-backed understanding of science and medicine. You are appreciated. If people want to learn more, and guys, I highly recommend you follow her on Instagram. She is killing it over there. Also, it's always sassy, It's truth with a side of sass, which God knows I love. How can people find you?
I'm at Natalie Gentile, MD on Substack, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, at home.
All the places.
Yeah, all the things. All
right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in live. If you joined us late, don't worry. I'm going to be posting this later and you can watch the whole thing through at your leisure. And until next time, as always, please take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks, Dr. G.